Okay, so next video, I would like to, I'm going to try and do this more often. I think it's a good way to help everybody that watches the videos, but it's a good way to respond, I think, to people that ask questions. I get many questions daily, and I tap, 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 tap and reply to people, or we even have a quick, 5-10 minute phone call, whatever. But actually, something that could be beneficial is me answering when questions are maybe quite general. I could give a general answer. Now, every dog does have what I call, that individual recipe, where sometimes they need a wee bit more salt, a wee bit more sugar. But there are still some basics. Every dog I work with, you're slightly different, but there are still some the fundamentals that are the same. So I've had actually a good friend of mine who has a dog. I'm not actually sure what type of dog she has. I haven't seen the dog. I just know since speaking to her last they were going to get a dog. Her name is Heather, and she's messaged me today, and this is what she said. Okay, we've just had an incident this morning. I was hoping to nip in the bud immediately, and I wondered if you may have some advice. Our dog is lovely, but his breed is known for being a bit dominant. Okay, we're prepared for that, and I'm pretty sure that in the house that she's taking control. He has basic obedience, he isn't allowed on the couch, and is crated when we're out and overnight. However, it seems that while he doesn't resource guard food or toys at all, he's starting to resource guard me. Okay, and he isn't happy to share attention with the kids. And this morning he had a snap. He snapped when one of the kids were coming to see the real mum. The dog had a snap at the child. It didn't bite the child or anything like that, but definitely was trying to give a rule there. She's obviously saying her husband is definitely not happy with that. Neither was she. So she's asking, I'm not really sure how to proceed and haven't been able to find some definitive answers online. Yeah, I mean, if you just Google it, you're going to get a lot of nonsense, okay? You're going to get, obviously a lot of within Google is, behind the background is money. So what you'll get in Google first is all your purely positive, force-free ideology. Everything that will be sure to make you fail, to be honest. And so yeah, you're not really going to be able to find those answers on Google, and that's why you obviously messaged me. So she's intending to dial it back completely, and and have more respect. She mentions about place training. Good, Heather. We'll talk about that. Duration and obedience work. He isn't very food driven, but is motivated by praise. So this may help him feel valued at times when he's not able to demand affection. And then she's asking any tips, how would she deal with that to have the dog be better with the kids, but also to reinforce the right behaviours. So the main thing that I would focus on, it's funny, isn't it, that a lot of people will call me or message me or do a session with me, and their dog is doing an unwanted behaviour. And I liken that to, you have a child who's stealing cars. They're doing something wrong, something seriously wrong. This is potentially biting the child. Seriously wrong. And the first thing we kind of think of is, how can I reassure the dog? How can I, use positive reinforcement? How can I? So we almost think of, actually the wrong side of the coin, So whereas actually thinking, wait a minute, this is absolutely wrong and this is unacceptable and needs to be stopped. I'm going to take my glasses off because all I can see is the camera back, and maybe you can when you're watching the video, and that's all you need. My face is enough. So the things that I would focus on, Heather, are, yes, we can build engagement and more trust with your children, with the dog, and the dog trusting the children more. But it sounds like, and again, you need to really meet the dog to be 100%, but it sounds like a respect issue, not a trust issue. So the dog probably already trusts the kids, trusts you. It just doesn't respect your rule when someone's coming into your intimate space less than 3 feet. And the dog certainly doesn't respect the children. The dog is being the rule giver and who comes into your intimate space. So first thing I'd be doing is, yes, teaching place training, great for obedience and great for calming the dog, and I'll do this instead. So when the dog is thinking about doing something they're not comfortable with, or we're not comfortable with, something that they've maybe shown that is not acceptable, we can teach the dog to do this instead. Go and do that instead, and this makes you feel much more comfortable, and it's much more social. So absolutely watch the videos on my YouTube channel on place training and do that. But the biggest thing I would focus on is the dog earning the right to get into your and your children's intimate space less than 3 feet. So the key thing is the dog doesn't get into your intimate space unless it's invited. If the dog has not been invited into your intimate space, you move the dog back out of your intimate space. You can do that many ways. You can use spatial pressure. A lot of times that's all that's needed. If the dog is getting quite dominant and use spatial pressure, then the dog is just going to ignore that and try and go around you or jump on you. And then you need to be more. So you need to correct the behavior with that. I would do that physically with a touch. That's one option. But the key thing is the dog cannot come into your intimate space unless it's invited. And I would really make the dog work more for affection. You want things to be safe. You want things to kind of guarantee they're safe. That's the key principle. So I liken it to, I have 5 young children regularly in my home, bringing in a new baby. And the first thing that happens, and my dogs are all very good with kids, but the first thing that happens as soon as that car seat, generally it's a car seat nowadays, isn't it? Come in, put the car seat down. Those dogs don't get within 3 feet of that child unless I invite it. So they're maybe curious. Dogs, to be honest, don't really care. They stay out of the way. But if they were, they're up and they come over and they're sniffing. But that doesn't even mean they still get to be into the intimate space of the baby yet. The first thing they have to learn for that baby is respect. And the trust will build because it's new. So they're unsure and learning and what is this and what's going on. So the first thing I lay down the law is these are the rules. You want to get near that, you better be invited. Okay, so that makes things very safe, and it makes the dogs very respectful of the baby. So it sounds like your dog is getting into intimate space, in particular your intimate space, without being invited. And then the dog has taken upon itself, for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter the reason, the dog has now went, I'm going to decide who comes into your space. You're not mum at that point, you are the follower at that point. He's the parent, you're the child, and he's deciding who comes in your space. Now, absolutely, if we're being proactive, that situation won't even happen. But if for whatever reason that has happened and the dog's now sitting beside you or on you or whatever, and the child comes over and he dares has a snap or anything, you absolutely put him off you, of course. I would heavily correct that behavior. And then I would put the dog on place. The place is the do this instead though, remember? So I'm not telling the dog off with place. It's letting the dog, I want the dog to learn a coping mechanism that when they feel they have to control a situation, whether out of excitement, fear, anxiety, I want the dog's response to learn, I really want to do A, B, I'll just go and lie in place. Because I'm going to get that reinforced, and that also makes me feel better. So that's how it becomes a fail-safe for the dog. So very simply, the dog should not get in your intimate space without being invited. Heaven knows probably what's happened with your husband. And that's what I generally say to people. It says, he has to work to get into your intimate space. So should the dog. And it sounds like the dog isn't working to get into your intimate space. And if it is, you're not maybe being strict enough with that. I advise that. I always advise a 90-day plan. So I'd be doing that for 90 days. If you're thinking, well, I've got the dog to be beside me. I don't mind the dog being beside me. But your dog needs a wee bit more help right now. So this isn't actually about, but I want this. Your dog has needs. And what the dog needs to know is where it is in the pecking order, because that's a dog that you even mentioned, like one bite and that dog's gone. okay? And realistically, that means if that dog's gone, and you try and rehome a dog like that, it's probably very minor issues. Those dogs end up with a needle a lot of the time. So it's potentially a very serious situation. So you need to just, and I also know you, so I know you'll hammer down on it. But it doesn't mean the dog can't get affection, of course. But the dog has to work a lot more. And what you're looking for is for the dog to be invited. Very simply, oh, the dog's quite calm here. He's lying beside me. Is that okay? Well, did you invite the dog over? No, move it back out. Okay, has to start working more to get into your intimate space. So then you're going to have a dog that's going to start, you're now petting, cuddling your child, and then the dog is going to come because it wants to be part of that, and it'll absolutely be able to get and be part of that when it's earned the right to. But the dog would start to then go, oh, you're getting petted. Sorry, there's love, affection going on. I'm coming over, and it will come to maybe within 3 or 4 feet and be like waiting to be invited. That's much healthier state of mind rather than just jealousy and you're interacting with your children and or with your husband, and then the dog comes and pay attention to me, this kind of that should not even be happening. That should absolutely be a firm correction and the dog moved into. But you can only also really do a firm correction if you have, as in holding the dog accountable for what is right and wrong. If you've taken time to actually teach the do this instead first, the place training and setting up and being proactive. So hopefully that helps. Invite the dog into your intimate space. If you can master that, you're not going to have issues. You can fine tune that if going forward, if you generally then feel the dog has nervous disposition with children or with your children or other children, then what you need to do is we would do a separate video on that and talk really about markers and marker training and about counter conditioning or desensitizing and making good associations between you and the kids, but between the kids and the dog. But all has to have a foundation of respect. Has to have that. I can't teach the child to play the piano if the child's too busy jumping on the sofa. So I can't, teach the dog how to be really comfortable with the child if the dog is too busy, like in its own, I'm gonna do this. So you have to first snap them out of that and be like, that's not what we do, wrong choice. But do this instead. Hope that helps.